Andrew, you made this list. This is your list. So I'm not here to tear it down. I'm here to listen, maybe give some constructive feedback, and talk a little bit about what is going on with the top teams of each conference.
Yeah, so starting off with the Eastern Conference, my one overall is going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers. I know that this will probably be the first gripe that you have with this list, but they've just been the best team all season long. Overall, top to bottom, I probably like the Celtics a little bit more. In my rankings, I did a 1 and a 1A. In a 7-game series, I don't doubt the fact that the Celtics could beat them pretty handily, even in 6 games, where I think the Cavaliers' best shot would probably be 7 at beating the Celtics, but especially with home court advantage throughout the whole playoffs, at least through the Eastern Conference. But I have the Cavaliers my 1 just for everything that they've done all throughout the regular season, and the Celtics is my 1A. Then I have the Knicks as the 2 or 3 spot, whatever you want to call it. Let's go with 3. 4, I have the Bucks. 5, I have the Pistons. 6, I have the Pacers. 7, I have the Magic. 8, I have the Heat. 9, I have the Hawks. And 10, I have the Bulls. You can pick that apart in whatever order you want. We can just go through it from wherever you want to start, but those are my 1 through 10 in the Eastern Conference.
Okay, so I don't really have very many issues, in all honesty. I see obviously that the Pacers, based off of the seeding, are now down to the sixth team. They're the fourth seed right now. I mean, you can probably jumble up any of those teams. I try to also, whenever I'm listening to your rankings, not just project what I think or who I think is going to win in a series. Obviously, we're trying to see how these teams are ending their season and where they're, leaving their lasting impression on the regular season is, right? Like some of these teams may be peaking, others not. Playing is obviously a way different scenario. I'm not going to put the Magic over a team like the Pistons, Milwaukee, or the Pacers, even though Milwaukee doesn't have Damian Lillard. Uh, we'll start with the top, Boston over Cleveland. That would probably be my go-to, just simply because I think Boston, being the defending champions, does have a little bit of that respect going into it. But like I said, I didn't want to. I don't know if I'm in the right to put Boston over Cleveland. Cleveland's won 63 games this year, and they've beaten a lot of good teams on the way. And what was the winning streak that they had? Was it 17 games or something like that? They've had some dominant streaks throughout this entire year. They've beaten a lot of the top teams in the NBA. That would be maybe the first thing, though. Maybe I just give the edge to Boston. Also, because Boston might end this year with 60 wins. They're kind of now at this point resting everybody. They got that second seed locked up. New York's not going to catch them, obviously. So, and they're not going to catch Cleveland. So, everybody's resting. So maybe they'll get over the hump. They're 59-21. I think it was interesting. I'm curious as to what your logic was to put the Pistons all the way up. Did you have them at 4 or 5?
I had the Pistons at 5,
Okay,
but
what was the reasoning for the Pacers dropping?
yeah, I just don't like the Pacers in either of those series. I more projected it out that way, the way you're talking about, rather than like an actual power rankings where it's like maybe the better team. But in a 7-game series, they play in the 4 versus 5 matchup. I just think the Pistons are coming out of that series. If some really good shooters, Cade Cunningham has become a significantly better leader. Obviously, like Tyrese Halliburton has more playoff experience, as like Cade Cunningham doesn't have any. But I think that Pistons team just feels like it's built for the playoffs more than any of the other like young teams or inexperienced teams, just because of the fact that they do play with that physicality. And I just like them in a 7-game series over the Pacers. And then, I like the Bucks over both those teams. So that's kind of why I slotted them the way they are. I these are kind of interchangeable. I think that both conferences are pretty top heavy, and the top seeds will come out of each conference. But I don't know. It's definitely, you can flip it around, but I like the Pistons in a 7-game series, which is why I put them over the Pacers at 5, even though they're ranked higher than them, but or seeded higher than them. But I wanted to like quickly go back to the Celtics Cavaliers like little discussion that we like had that we didn't kind of have. I will say, for everything that I like am given towards the Cavs, like the Celtics have had like maybe not a sneaky good season, because like everyone still talks about them, but they were like still could have won 60. They easily could have won 60 games if they're not like kind of like just like reeling it, or they probably will still win 60 games. They're playing Charlotte today, so they're going to get to 60 wins in a season. They're only 4 games back of the Cavaliers, even with the crazy long win streaks that they've had and all like the different ups and downs that they've had with their season. Derek White has continued to be the great player for them. Peyton Pritchard has taken another step forward. He could possibly be the 6th man of the year. So just from top to bottom, that team looks really good, and I think that they're more than capable of defending their championship. I'm also a Miami Heat fan, so maybe take my Celtics hate with a grain of salt. But I just really like what the Cavaliers are doing, and they have a really, really good starting 5, and some of their bench players are really good. But I don't want to discount the Celtics at all. Like that team just showed last year how dominant they are, and what they lose like 3 games all of the playoffs. So I definitely don't want to. It's 1-1A. I see that series going to 6 no matter what, if not 7.
Yeah, I think that series is gonna be great. I don't really see it going either way in, like, 4 games or 5 games. I think it'll be close. Cleveland's so much more improved from what they were last year, and I don't think it is Boston hate. I just that was just my only constructive thing. Let's move to the plan before we go out to the Western Conference. You had Orlando as the top team from the plan, but then you had Miami at 8. Obviously, you've kind of given away your Miami allegiance, and I'm pretty sure my Magic allegiance is also being given away a little bit too. I think it's pretty clear that the Magic are the best playing team. I don't know if any of these playing teams, though, are going to be able to take too many games off of Boston or Cleveland. But just dive into that for me really quick. You think it's Magic and Heat who come out of the plan? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it looks like the Hawks are like possibly the worst team over the last 10 games. They're 4-6, while the Heat, the Magic, and sorry, the Bulls are all at least 7-3 or better. The Magic are 8-2 over their last 10 games. They're like peaking at the right time, if you want to call it that. Obviously, they've dealt with injuries all season long. I just think from like top to bottom, the Magic are the best team out of those 4 teams. And then if the Bulls and Heat play in a one-off game, I always, I mean, we've done it before. I'm as a Heat fan, I'm not putting the Bulls over the Heat. So I also like what we were kind of cooking here with Davion Mitchell and Andrew Wiggins, and they've all started to play like significantly better since getting traded. Tyler Hero obviously made his first All-Star game this season. Bam Adebayo is kind of like regressed a little bit this season, but is still a great defensive player. He can guard like essentially 1 through 5, maybe a little bit less on the 5 side because he's a little bit of a smaller big. But that team genuinely is like a playoff team. Maybe I don't even want them to make the playoffs this year. I all told because I'd rather us get a better draft pick this season. But I think the Hawks are definitely the team that are playing the worst right now. And then if the Bulls and Heat are going to be matched up, I think the Heat are the better team just in general. So that's kind of where the reasoning came from. The Magic are just clearly the better team from those 4, and then it'd probably go Heat, Bulls, and then Hawks from it.
Yeah, maybe it would be a little bit different if the Magic had Jalen Suggs. Obviously, their season would have looked a little bit different if they didn't have Paulo and Franz go down due to the same oblique injury. But those are big ifs, and we have no idea. And I think we're in agreement that most of these teams, or all 4 of these teams, will probably go out in 4 or 5, maximum 6 to either Cleveland or Boston. This isn't going any other way. At least that's what it looks like right now. Let's move out west. Give me your power rankings for the Western Conference.
Yeah, so for the Western Conference, I'll list it off 1 through 10 like I did for the East, and then we can go through it. At 1, I have OKC. At 2, I have the Lakers. At 3, I have the Rockets. At 4, I have the Warriors. At 5, I have the Clippers. At 6, I have the Nuggets. At 7, I have the Timberwolves. At 8, I have the Grizzlies. At 9, I have the Kings. And at 10, I have the Mavericks. Again, just like the Eastern Conference, a lot of these play like maybe the play-in teams work a little bit different in the Western Conference. I think that the 7 and 8 seed are a little bit more dangerous than they are in the Eastern Conference, but the 9 and the 10 seed for both these conferences are just like absolutely terrible.
Oh yeah, your 9 and 10 seed. Because right
Yeah,
now, yeah, but I agree.
it'll be
Yeah,
the Kings and the Mavericks.
yeah. No, I know. I just meant. I thought you said for both of these conferences, so that's why I said Miami. Or I
Mhm.
was alluding to Miami being the
Mhm.
10th seed in the East. Okay, so we have some more disagreements here, just based off of the way that I look at the Western Conference. Obviously, the 4th through the 8th seed in this conference is a lot tighter than it is in the East, and there's some storylines going on with the teams in the West that, in my opinion, almost borderline disqualify you from being ranked ahead of some of the other teams that, in my opinion, have their stuff together. I have the Lakers being probably the second best team right now, and I am fully convinced that they will be making the conference finals. I don't know if I can pick them against the Thunder, especially, by the time the conference finals roll around, we may have seen a different Thunder team. But I'm curious as to what you're thinking about with Denver and Memphis. How low did you have Memphis again?
I had Memphis at 8, and
And
I
where's
had Denver
Denver?
at 6.
Okay. So you had Denver at 6.
Mhm.
It partially because of the firings or what, or just maybe it was because they haven't been reaching expectations or
Yeah, they had their first 4-game losing streak for the first time since 2023, so that's definitely part of it. They're losing games at the wrong time. Obviously, April basketball, March basketball doesn't matter as much, but like the team just feels a little bit disjointed. Part of the reason we'll get to it, of the coach firing though, is just because it just felt disjointed. There was like a certain like there was a report that came out that like the players just like didn't were not together, not on the same page, and that was partially because of the coaching. But I don't like the way the Nuggets are playing as of late. They obviously have Jokic, but besides that, I mean, like you can count on like Aaron Gordon and like certain guys to step up for you on any given night. But I just don't like the way this Denver Nuggets team is playing basketball right now. And I said a couple episodes back that like the next time Jokic doesn't get out of the first round, call me. But you might have to give me that call this year because like this team is like just going in the wrong direction at the wrong time, and I don't like a team losing their head coach going into the playoffs. So that was part of the reason why they're like seed 6 instead of like maybe 3 or 4.
Isn't that such a weird statement to say? I feel like that is not something that happens ever. And
Mhm.
yet we have two examples of it in the same conference this season with Memphis and Denver. And obviously Denver also fired Calvin Booth, their GM. So just a mess, in my
And
opinion,
then
right now. And there's more information that continues to come out. So that's why I'm leaning towards Golden State being that high. I have
mhm.
no faith or trust in the Clippers just because it's the Clippers, but they've got plenty of vets. Obviously, Kawhi Leonard's healthy, so that is a little bit of a game changer. Uh, but I don't know if I can really bet on them or how high I would want to put them. Do I put them above Houston? Definitely not. Not the way that Houston's playing. So my list would be a little bit more jumbled, I think. And like, hey, look, I might need to see a couple games in the playoffs to really assess who is for real, or at least see some of the play-in games, just get my mind right. But I mean, so who did you pick? You picked OKC to come out of the Western Conference. You have them at the top of your power rankings.
Mhm.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for them based off of these rankings that you've made?
At this point, you'd probably say it has to be the Lakers just because of the fact that, like you mentioned, at least 2 out of the 3 best players in any given series for the Lakers is probably they're going to have 2 of the best 3 players on any of their series. Obviously, you can make the case for Shea versus Luca. Probably lean Luca as the best player in that series, but I just think from top to bottom, the OKC's like the best team in the Western Conference, and the Lakers are probably the runners up in that situation. You said that they have the possibly 2 of the 3 best white guys in the league with Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic before the podcast started. And I tend to agree with that. I mean, maybe you can go down a list of white guys in the league and they maybe make a case for some other guys. But Austin Reeves has been playing really, really good for the last couple seasons. It's been one of the most underrated parts of the Lakers in general. LeBron has definitely seen a little bit of a regression, but Luka Doncic is playing some of his best basketball. Obviously, he just dropped 45 against Dallas the other day. So I mean, I just don't trust the Rockets as that second team to kind of give. They're still 14 games back of the Thunder. The Thunder paced everybody in the West this year, and I think if the Lakers and the Rockets were to play in the second round, the Lakers probably taking like 5 or 6. So I yeah, I know, and
No,
then
I agree though. And that's no
and then
disrespect to the Rockets.
yeah, I just don't think that they're experienced enough, and I think maybe next year's their year, but or they're still probably a year or 2 away, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's one thing that we've seen in the playoffs that is true pretty much every single year, and it's just that if there is a team that comes out of nowhere, they will have they will have to kind of learn to lose first before they end up winning. Like that happens a lot, and it's more often than not the case. And with the Lakers, I just think they got too much firepower. And when you eliminate some of these other teams, or you can't trust some of these teams, or maybe they're actually too old, like the Golden State Warriors, from top to bottom, their main guys are just older. Like
Mhm.
I just have trouble trusting some of these teams. So you're kind of left with like Oklahoma City and the Lakers.